Okay, only 10 more presents to wrap. You're almost at the finish line. But first... There, the last one. Enjoy a Coca-Cola for a pause that refreshes.
And now, a message from McAfee.
Your package couldn't be delivered.
You owe thousands in unpaid tolls!
You want a free gift.
If texts like these sound familiar, McAfee can help. McAfee automatically identifies text and email scams as well as AI-generated audio to help you stay safe. If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, and I'm happy to be with all of you on this Thanksgiving week. And boy, there is a lot of news. You have U.S. acids gearing up there in Puerto Rico and, of course, off the coast of Venezuela. Lots of looks at Maduro's regime. Lots of new designations against him. You also have Ukraine. So President Trump has a lot on his plate. And also, we'll talk about Comey. We'll talk about a whole bunch more. And also Zoran Mandani, the odd couple meeting, if you will, between Zoran Mandani and also President Trump. And everybody is still trying to talk about the details, who won, who lost, who had the upper hand. Obviously, President Trump clearly did. He's the president of the United States. He sat there behind, the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And Zoran Mandani was sort of like the little pupil standing there. And we all know what Donald Trump was doing. He's ingratiating. He's being nice. He's saying, look, I talk to everybody. But at the end of the day, I think the big headline, and we heard it just a little bit ago, is that Zoran Mandani says there was no assurance whatsoever from President Trump that he won't send in federal troops into New York. He also said there was no assurance whatsoever that President Trump might not withhold federal dollars from New York. In other words, President Trump is trying to still keep Zoran Mandani on a leash. He's essentially saying, look, I'm hoping for the best. This is my hometown. This is my home community. This is the area that I love, and I wanted to do well, and I'm hoping you do well. I'm going to give you a shot, even though your policies are so radical and so different than mine and different than many of New Yorkers and many Americans, but I'm willing to give it a shot. So it's an interesting sort of back and forth between the two of them. And some people are saying tonight that they think this sort of bromance, if you will, may only last for a few more days, a few more weeks. Remember, Zoran Mandani takes over on January 1st. So maybe January 2nd, things may fall apart. But at least you can't say President Trump didn't try. And I do give him credit for that. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. And here is Zoran Mandani talking on Meet the Press. Here he is. He's like the golden child to the media. They're calling him, quote, the boy wonder. I call him the boy who went asunder. But he is the boy wonder, I guess, to some in the media. And here he is on Meet the Press on NBC over the weekend. And they said, what was this like? What was this meeting like with President Trump? How would you describe it? And how could you describe such a weird pairing of you and President Trump, who is such a law and order guy? And there is Zoran Mandani with a lot of his anti-Semitic, I think very risky anti-police policies. That's not how Meet the Press said it. That's how I'm saying it. Those are my beliefs. But here he is on Meet the Press explaining about his meeting with President Trump.
I think that some of your supporters would be curious to know, you say you stand by your past statements that, yes, he's a threat to the democracy. How do you square working with someone who you still think is a threat to the democracy?
I think working for the people of New York City demands that you work with everyone and anyone, and that you always look to find those areas of agreement while not overlooking the places of disagreement. And I think this was something that came up in our meeting. We spoke about immigration. We spoke about the fact that in New York City, we have sanctuary city policies that allow for the city to work with the federal government on around 170 serious crimes. The concern for so many New Yorkers comes about anything beyond that. And I spoke about the importance of us being able to protect New Yorkers, and some of the incidents that we see, they do not do that.
So that was an interesting answer. It doesn't really say that they got to the heart of the matter, but it sounds like they both said we'd like to protect New Yorkers. On the other hand, President Trump clearly is not a sanctuary city fan. That's the thing. He's like, sanctuary cities, it's just these crimes. We're not going to cooperate. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. So it's a bunch of gobbledygook. And obviously, the minute that Zoran Mandani says, NYPD, stand down, I don't want you to cooperate with ICE and protesters, it doesn't bother me that you're shouting these horrible, vile things at ICE officers or blocking entrances. Keep on going. I would say maybe at that moment, he and President Trump won't see eye to eye. And then here's the doozy, because remember when he was standing next to President Trump in the Oval Office, and there were some interesting moments. I brought this up on Friday night with all of you guys because President Trump was asked by the press in the room, the White House press corps, hey, what do you think? You know, you called this guy X, and he called you a fascist. Do you still believe, the question was to Mandani, that Trump is a fascist? And President Trump kind of gave him a little cover there. He said, you know, you don't have to answer that. You know, I've been called worse. You don't have to call that. Just say yes, whatever, you know, kind of blew it off and laughed it off, which was classic Trump. It was a classic sort of answer and response from President Trump. So it was interesting because I didn't hear any answer. I was watching pretty closely to see what Zoran Mandani would say. I actually wish President Trump didn't give him the cover there. I think President Trump should have let the press have at this guy because finally he was getting some tough questions. He doesn't get a lot of tough questions, I don't think, from the New York press. So he finally got some other tough questions finally thrown at him to Mandani. And I wish I would have loved to have seen him kind of flail a little or do his little word salad on his answers. But still, he gets asked this question. And so he gets asked on Meet the Press, what do you think? Do you believe that President Trump is a fascist? And you would think after he got invited to the Oval Office, he was the one requesting the meeting. Remember, over and over and over again, he was the guy who was like, I'd want to go meet with him. Everybody said it was at the request of Mandani because he wants to get in good terms with Trump. He also wants to make sure the federal dollars come to New York. And so you would think after a meeting like he had in Washington on Friday for the whole world to see, it doesn't get any bigger than an invitation to be allowed to come to the Oval Office and have a nice talk with President Trump. I can't think of a bigger experience for a New York mayor. I mean, come on, especially he hasn't even been in office yet. So I think it was actually incredibly gracious of President Trump to give him the time, to give him the exposure, to allow all those things, to have him there even in the Oval Office. I think, you know, President Trump was incredibly gracious. It's a testament to the fact that he'll talk to anybody, anytime. But no, not to Zoran Mandani. Zoran Mandani, I couldn't believe this over the weekend. He was asked on Meet the Press, well, what do you think? Do you think that President Trump really is a fascist? And I sort of thought, oh, he's going to go, no. After spending some time with him, he's a very nice man, and that was just campaign talk or whatever. No. Zoran Mandani stuck to his guns. And then he said, I said yes. I didn't see that. Maybe he did in the Oval Office. I missed it. Let me know if you saw him say that. I've been looking at that clip a little bit, and I haven't seen him say it, but maybe it's there. But still, regardless, he's sticking to his guns and saying, yeah, I still believe President Trump is a fascist. Listen to this.
NYPD would be the ones to do so.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer. Then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, that's okay. You can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it. So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do.
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement, about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
That's stunning. So I still believe he's a fascist. We disagree on a lot of things. I'm calling him a fascist. I bet President Trump wasn't too happy to hear that. That even after everything that he did for this guy who's a little ant, you have to remember, you're the mayor of New York City. It's an important city, but he's the president of the United States. And you still call him a fascist after the meeting? I just found that completely arrogant and completely distasteful of Zoran Mandani. But it went further. Here's a little more from Zoran Mandani, full of himself after the Oval Office meeting.
You've also said in the past that President Trump has engaged in a, quote, attack on our democracy. You've called him a despot. Do you still believe President Trump is a threat to the democracy?
Everything that I've said in the past, I continue to believe. And that's the thing that I think is important in our politics, is that we don't shy away from where we have disagreements, but we understand what it is that brings us to that table. Because I'm not coming into the Oval Office to make a point or make a stand. I'm coming in there to deliver for New Yorkers. And a few weeks ago, I was asked by a reporter 3 words to describe myself. I said, New York City. And that's what animated that conversation. How do we deliver for the people of New York City?
How do we deliver for the people of New York City? 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Boy, oh boy. Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey on line 5. Go ahead, Sandra.
Well, Rita, I feel that, what's going on with my phone here? I feel that Donald Trump has given him a lot of leg room. And soon I visualize this beehive. And the bees are going around and they're peaceful. But you press too much, like these comments he just made, which are outrageously rude and really bad signs, the bee will sting. Donald Trump will sting. There are people that are a little bit angry at me because I felt Donald Trump did the right thing. He was being cordial. He's being nice. I thought that's okay. And I still think it's okay, but I know Donald Trump. If this guy gets out of line, he's not going to go for it. And he's going to sting right back. And that's so I feel this little guy here, he's going to get what he is asking for if he doesn't act nicely. And I don't know, Rita.
No, by the way, I agree, Sandra. I actually think you're right. I think he's being nice. I think he's being kind. And I think I'm talking about President Trump. And obviously Mandani was kind to Trump in front of him. But the fact that right after, I still think he's a fascist. That is to me so unprofessional. And it makes me think that this guy is still so full of himself. And I agree, which is why I actually think that I call it the bromance. I think the bromance is going to be over sooner than later. That's my feeling. Sandra, thank you very much. Let's go to Timothy in Brooklyn on line 3. Go ahead, Timothy.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear from you, Miss Rita. Number one, happy belated birthday. I did try, but that was a hot week. You need one of those Lily Tomlin switchboard operators. You're so good.
Oh, you're so. Thank you, Timothy, and thank you for calling. And I love the belated wishes. Thank you so much. You're so sweet.
Renaissance. This is Renaissance man, as you named me.
Absolutely. I hear the Renaissance voice. How could I forget?
Okay, in short, ma'am, I wanted to comment. I think that Mayor Mandani stands by his word when he said that I didn't want to say when he called President Trump a fascist, but it is what it is. And like you were saying earlier, because
what do you mean it is what it is?
I mean, when I say it is what it is, he stands by what he says, and when he makes a comment, take him at his word. He's not joking.
Well, by the way, I will give him that. I agree, Mr. Renaissance man, Timothy, that yes, I do agree that at least he does still stay by what he says. But that seemed like a bit of a different guy that was the one in the Oval Office, don't you think? Because he was there, He was like, we can work together. If you, let me just say this. If you really think somebody is a fascist, how can you work with a fascist on anything? I mean, you wouldn't want to be in the Oval Office with a fascist. If I really believe somebody was an outright fascist, I wouldn't want to be hanging out with them in the Oval Office and talking about working together. You can't really work with a fascist. That's why this is all.
I totally agree with you.
You know, that's why this is so hyperbole by him. And that's why it's an interesting dance that he's doing, because on one hand, he's begging to go see the president because he knows he needs the money and he wants to do whatever he can to keep the federal government out of New York in his mind. And then on the other hand, he still wants to do the mudslinging and say these things. And it's interesting, Timothy. I do think some people sort of throw out these comments. I do agree. I think he is a true believer. But it's interesting that true believer didn't have a problem going to the Oval Office and acting all chummy with the president when he needed him, right? So is he really a true believer?
Really?
Or is he more of a politician than we think?
Well, let me just say this in short, because I don't want to hold you up from your other people. Beyond the giggles and the good looks and all of that charisma, have you ever heard the saying, what you see is what you get?
Yes.
That applies to him. What you see is what you get. However, he thinks he knows because he's so young how to play his position. But again, he doesn't know a man of President Trump caliber and age and experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100. Timothy, you hit it on the head. You're right. It's like a young newbie thinking he can, pull one over. And then you have somebody who at the age of 34 accomplished like 20 lifetimes compared to this guy, Zoran Mandani. And now you've got a much more even seasoned Donald Trump who, boy, does he know the art of the deal better than anybody. And I bet a 34-year-old Donald Trump still had so much more experience than a Mandani. So you're right. He kind of walks in like the young buck who thinks he can pull one over. And I think he's going to find some big surprises if he tries to really push the limits or does what he says even. That's why this is going to be an interesting dance. Timothy, thank you for the belated birthday wishes. And everybody, we're going to continue after the break. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This shrimp and coconut sauce is divine. What's your secret?
Goya coconut milk.
How does it taste so good?
It's all in that real coconut flavor and that rich, creamy texture.
What about thickeners and added sugars?
None. Just smooth, coconutty goodness.
What can I make with it?
From curries to sweet treats like coconut flan, the possibilities are endless.
Goya coconut milk. Take your cooking to the next level. No question about it. Find it in the Goya section of your local grocery store. If it's Goya, it has to be good.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
REI Co-op presents a perfect outdoor moment with the perfect gift. Picture this. You're ripping with your favorite person. Bluebird skies, blower powder, and frankly, you're skiing like legends.
So sick. Another lap?
Thanks to REI's curation, from lid to sticks, you nailed the gift.
No way. How'd you know?
Does it get more perfect than that? Give without guessing. Shop in store or visit rei.com.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Jay Kelly is now playing in select theaters and on Netflix December 5th.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
Well, I am saying to you, Zoran Mandani, remember your place. You are just the mayor, and President Donald Trump is the leader of the free world. I think your rap songs need to go a little differently than the rap we have on you right now. So remember, you got lucky by going to the Oval Office. That was a very nice thing to do. And the next thing you do is call President Trump a fascist. We're going to take your calls because I think this bromance maybe lasts another week or two. That's it.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo. There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana. ¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Spotify. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Wherever Bud goes, his harmonica goes with him. It's a pocket full of soul. Now he's living with prostate cancer. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Sterling Heights, Michigan, where a police officer has been praised for his very quick response after a 5-month-old infant suffered a medical emergency at a local Walmart. Well, it happened just recently when a local officer was at the store on a special assignment detail when he was alerted to a medical emergency right across the store. The child who was breastfeeding had started choking and then suddenly stopped breathing. As soon as the officer learned of the circumstances, he ran over to where the mother was, and other family members gathered. So the officer then asked to hold the baby and began giving continuous back blows to the child in an attempt to force air out and clear the airway. The officer gave blows, and he could be heard on body cam video. "Come on, baby, come on, come on." After several minutes, thankfully, the child began developing hiccups and started to breathe more normally by the time medics arrived on the scene. The officers being heralded for very fast response, and the police department saying clearly the swift actions of this officer, along with assistance from witnesses at the scene there at the Walmart, were instrumental in saving the child's life. And bravo to our great men and women in blue. And everybody also, by the way, This holiday season, help the Red Apple audio networks feed those in need. Simply go to redappleaudionetwork.com/turkey and join Red Apple Audio Network's AARP New York City, the Police Athletic League, Gristedes and D'Agostino supermarkets, and nationwide imaging services as we deliver holiday meals. More than 5,000 families are getting them across the city. That is extraordinary. 5,000 families are receiving these meals. So go to redappleaudionetwork.com/turkey. Again, that's redappleaudionetwork.com/turkey. And whatever you can do, we greatly, greatly appreciate it, because that is surely what this season is truly all about. Well, we're talking about Zoran Mandani going to the White House. And last week, remember, there were these protests outside a very famous Jewish temple in New York City. And the temple is led by a rabbi who's an amazing man, Rabbi Mark Schneier. He is a Holocaust survivor, 95 years old. And this is a very legendary, synagogue. It is the Park East Synagogue. And what happened last week? All these protesters were out there shouting Intifada. They were blocking people from coming into the synagogue. That's not free speech. That's threatening, saying, we want you to be scared. That's not a good thing. It's not like, hi, free speech. We want you to be physically scared. We will physically block the entrance. There are so many violations here. So over the weekend, my awesome co-host and the owner of Red Apple Media, John Catsimatidis, he hosts an awesome show on Sunday. It is the Cats Roundtable. And he had on Deputy New York City Mayor Randy Mastro, who said things must change with the NYPD, that these protesters never should have gotten as close to that synagogue, that temple, and that was a disgrace, and that should not ever happen again. Listen to what he said.
And the police should be allowed to do their jobs. And the commissioner should be allowed to do her job. But when you have protesters literally allowed, and in this case, the police should have controlled that crowd more, should have kept them farther away from the entrance. They were literally at the door of the synagogue shouting, these protesters, things like globalize the intifada and urging the, quote, resistance to take another settler out, and saying vile things like, we don't want no two-state solutions, we want the whole thing. And they were protesting about Gaza, Palestine, and Israel, yet they were targeting New York Jews who were simply going to a synagogue to practice their religion. That just is not acceptable in our city. We have to protect our houses of worship, and in particular, the targets of these protests are synagogues, so that New Yorkers who are religious can practice their religion in peace, not be threatened, not be harassed, not be terrorized,
whether it's
because they go to a house of worship to practice their religion.
Whether
That's what Jews are experiencing in our city. I never thought I would see it in my life.
So well said. And it is shocking. And the reason I bring it up is Zoran Mandani has already said that a lot of these protests in general are First Amendment. So is blocking people from going into the synagogue, Jews who are going into the synagogue to pray, is that considered First Amendment? That is not. You talk to any attorney, and I have many of you who listen to this show, that is not First Amendment. Blocking them, telling them they should feel scared, they should feel threatened, that is not free speech. That is a direct threat. And that is disgraceful that happened in New York. And I bring it up because that's exactly a lot of the things I'm worried about under Zoran Mandani. Any sort of protest I'm worried about, because he's trying to get rid of the strategic response group of the NYPD, which handles these protests. Plus, he doesn't seem to be a fan of the Jewish people. That's my opinion. I mean, you look at everything. This guy, the things he has said, he wants to arrest Netanyahu. If you look at the Democratic Socialists of America agenda, it's all anti-Israel left and right. And guess what? He just started laying out his transition team with his, quote, transition members, these committee members. And there are a couple senior members of the Democratic Socialists of America that are on his transition team. So do you think he's going to change his mind? No, even in front of President Trump, he was asked, are you planning on still arresting Netanyahu? And he went to his usual answer that international law, blah, 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 blah. The whole word salad thing. In other words, yes, he didn't deny it. He said, I'm going to look at international law. He's going by this phony baloney International Criminal Court. So this is scary stuff. And we're going to see more of these protests. And that's why it's important to know the rules now. So the rules get put in place now. They have been fairly, squashed under Mayor Eric Adams. Remember, he finally sent people in to Columbia Hall. Remember when all that was going on Columbia campus? But still, these protests, I bet you they're going to spring up like daisies all over the place under Zoran Mandani. And the question is, first of all, will he encourage it? And second of all, will he not squash them? And what does that mean? Is somebody going to get hurt? Is that what it's going to take? That's what I fear. And President Trump will not tolerate that either. So here is Bill O'Reilly, because we talked with Bill earlier today on Katz and Cosby. And Bill was talking about the relationship between Trump and Mandani and what he saw at the White House. And it's very funny. He likened it, you'll love this, to sort of a holiday theme. Here it is. He was asked in a press conference today, did Trump give you any assurance like the National Guard won't come in at some point too? And he said, no, he didn't give me any. So you could tell Trump still left a lot of things on the table, which he has to with this guy.
Yeah, Trump didn't want to get into specifics with Mandani. He just wanted to basically send a message to those of us who are alert. Look, I can handle this guy. It's like Santa Claus when you're 8. You sit on his knee. He tells you, what a nice little boy. What would you like? And then Donnie goes, I want a book by Karl Marx. Okay. That's what it is. That's what that was.
I love that analogy. So it's like an 8-year-old boy saying, as opposed to a horsey or a rocker, I'd like to have Karl Marx's new book, Daddy. Could I have that? That was little, I guess, Zoran Mandani, according to Bill O'Reilly. That's a good one, Bill. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Vito in New York on line 4. Go ahead, Vito.
Hello, Rita. Listen, Mandani is with the terrorists. He's the 9/11 scum. And you know how you spell Mandani in Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese? Mierdi, which means manure.
Yeah, by the way, you're actually being very nice because I know what mierda means, which is un poquito diferente, Vito, un poquito. But, Vito, let's see what happens. Obviously, look, I wish the best for New York. I don't have a lot of faith in this guy, and clearly you don't either. And that we do agree on. Let's go to Michael in New Jersey, line 5. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, it reminds me of the story that Trump tells about the woman and the rattlesnake. She finds the snake half frozen in the snow, so she brings the snake into the house, puts the snake near the fireplace to warm it up, and then the snake bites her. That's what this guy did. He basically played up to Trump, I like you, and Trump falls for it. What Trump had the opportunity to do was to embarrass the hell out of this guy in front of the public. What he could have done was said, nothing you said you were going to do is ever going to happen. And you're going to say, it's all Trump's fault. Trump wouldn't let me do this and that and that and this. No, I'm not doing anything. But you know who is doing it? The leader of the Democratic Party in the state of New York, which is the governor. You said you were going to make free trains and free buses. Well, she already said, oh, no, you're not. You're not going to make them free. As a matter of fact, not only are you not going to make them free, but we're going to raise the fare. You can't even stop them from raising the damn fare, let alone making it for free. Then you said, oh, we're going to tax the rich. Oh, no, you're not. If we tax the rich, they'll leave. You said you're going to freeze rents. You can't do that, and that's not going to happen.
By the way, hey, Michael, I agree with you on the points. Now, but what's interesting, I'll tell you, when I first saw it, I thought he should have, I understand why he was engaging to Mandani. I 100% agree with that because, look, he asked him, could I have a meeting? Mr. President, he was the one soliciting it. He is the mayor of the biggest city in New York, and Trump does want the best for the biggest city in New York and his hometown. So I don't blame him for having the meeting. I think I personally, but Trump may be 20 times more brilliant than I am, and I believe he is. But I would have probably said, Mr. Mandani, here's what I'm expecting. If we can have law and order, if we can do this, if we respect our police, if we do this, maybe not even, call certain things by name, but say, hey, as long as, there's law and order, there's cooperation, police are treated well, law and order is priority, community safety is priority. As long as all these things happen, you and I are going to get along great. And if it's not, we'll see where this goes. I would have kind of done a little bit of that. On the other hand, in many ways, it's brilliant what Trump did. And many people who know Trump super duper well, and I know him fairly well, but people who know him really well have said, listen, this is typical Trump. He sort of engages, especially when it's somebody that he has such a far disparate view of. And they do. They almost couldn't be further apart ideologically, and in so many ways. And so maybe his philosophy, what a lot of people believe, is that his feeling is, let's just be really nice. I'll be nice. I'll give a very kind of superficial meeting. Let's see where it goes. And then after the superficial meeting, if the guy, doesn't do right by New York, which is probably going to happen if he lives up to almost any of those promises that he made on the campaign trail, then I'm going to have to rein him in. But I'll show what a nice cordial meeting is if you do a good job. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't started yet, right? So you can't even really critique his performance as mayor. You can't. Other things you certainly can, but that you can't. So maybe that's sort of his whole philosophy is nice, nice, nice. And then if something is the opposite, boy, will he scold him. And then he can feel what it feels like to be welcomed in the Oval Office. And then he can feel what it's like to be MIA in the Oval Office. Your thoughts on that strategy, Michael?
I still would have preferred if he would have embarrassed the hell out of him in public. He wanted to meet him. He gave him the chance to meet him. Now you go for the kill. I would have embarrassed the hell out of him and tell the people who voted for him he's not going to do a damn thing. What he should have done was gone to Hochul and said, look, I want to do this, this, and this. Will you let me? No, I won't. Well, then don't promise it. You made promises that the governor, your head of the Democratic Party in the state of New York, isn't going to allow you to do. But you're going to look to stick the blame on me? No, stick it on, not only that, you stick it on Hochul, so this way the next person, the next Republican who runs against her, maybe you'll get elected in the state of New York. You have to make it look bad for Hochul, and you have to make it look bad for the communists. But he didn't do that, so I was very, very disappointed.
But Michael, did you hear what I said? Maybe this is just like a very tertiary round one, and he knows that there's going to be round 2 through 500 coming up. In other words, the guy hasn't delivered yet. So maybe this is his strategy. And it's interesting. Laura Trump, I talked to Laura on Friday. We had her on the show on Katz and Cosby. And she said that, she has also sort of seen her father-in-law be super nice to those who are almost like, first of all, he'll talk to anybody. He talked to Kim Jong-un. He's talked to others. And if it helps things and smoothes things over, that's okay. On the other hand, he also certainly can deliver a whammy too, as we have seen. And many people feel because he was sort of, he knows who this guy is. This is just the one time I'll be nice for niceties. Certainly, clearly, the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America base, didn't like Mandani even being nice to Trump because he couldn't be mean to him. I think Mandani was expecting some pushback and didn't get it. So he ended up being nice to Trump, and that didn't help him with his base. So it's going to be, he sort of is playing a little bit of a psychological game and playing, really and sort of like thinking the next second, third, fourth steps, because the hammer is going to come down. And that's where I think that next meeting, he could say, look, I met with him. I was nice to him. It was before he's mayor. I was really hoping for good things. He's not doing it. And there's a long time also in that governor's race. And you bring up a good point, because that governor's race is going to be very interesting. And Kathy Hochul is really trying to do a bit of a dance, because remember, she did end up endorsing Mandani. And, on one hand, she says she doesn't want to raise taxes. On the other hand, there are reports that she's going to be kind of folding over like a cheap suit for Mandani. So it's going to be an interesting dance, and that may definitely open up the door for Elise Stefanik, Bruce Blakeman, a Republican. We'll have to see. But this is going to be interesting times. Buckle up, Michael. There is no doubt about that. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue on The Rita Cosby Show after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And in the next hour, we'll talk about James Comey and Letitia James, and of course, continue talking about Zoran Mandani. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota on line 5. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, Rita, Mandani needs Trump more than Trump needs Mandani, because he has to deliver on his promises and can't do it without Trump. Trump has out-Trumped himself by talking to Mandani and declaring that New York City needs help and the city needs saving. That means that Trump has made Trump into a verb by almost talking to him about, okay, I'm going to do what you want to do. You can call me a fascist or whatever. I'm going to help you save New York City. So basically what he's trying to do, I think, Trump is trying to target the moderates in New York City and saying, hey, I'm going to help this fool to save your city, but you got to work with me, you guys, and keep me in the picture and vote for whoever is going to stand on the Republican side so we can actually get the city away from this guy. He's sending, bad signals to people that are moderates in New York City.
Yeah, you know what? It's an interesting point, because I do think, and I said this, it was interesting, people watching what we all saw, and we all saw at the same time, when we saw that exchange between the two of them, for like half an hour there in the Oval Office. I think people watching it who thought, oh, God, Trump is this, horrible dictator, he's this, he's that, go, wow, he seems like a really nice, reasonable guy. I think even, the people that had the perpetual Trump derangement syndrome, I think they were like, wait, like they couldn't believe it. And I think, obviously, the Democratic Socialists of America are now not happy with Mandani. So it's sort of this interesting thing that he's caused almost a bit of a schism, I think, a little bit for Mandani. I think you're right. I think he may have ingratiated himself to people, or at least, caused them to be totally confused, those permanent Trump haters. Maybe he's brought some over, or maybe he's just made them further perplexed. But I think there will be a moment, and I think it's going to happen soon, where he says, you're not doing what you promised to do. Get back to New York City and fix it.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?